Hello, everybody, and happy Wednesday, woo. So glad to be back with you guys. So glad to be back home. I was away for the weekend, couldn't get any reception. I made it more dramatic than it needed to be, but I'm glad that I'm back here. Hopefully, you all had a spectacular weekend and a great week. And let's see. Sorry, I feel like if you're here, I'd love for you to say hey because I'm still getting this weird. I don't know. I always get this weird chat thing. So feel free to say hey and let me know that you're here. Let me know how your week has been going. Again, this is Wednesday Woo with Mel. That's me. And this week, well, I will say, starting last week, we started talking about moving through this journey of understanding our life lessons using the tarot, the major arcana in the tarot, to help us kind of connect to the visuals and and what we're as what we're experiencing, being able to identify what the lessons look like, how they feel for us. Last week we went through the first three cards of the major arcana, and this week we are continuing that journey, and we are continuing with the Empress, the Emperor, and the Hierophant. So I'd love if you are watching this now or in the replay, if you've had a chance to look at these images at all this week, I'd love for you to tell me kind of which of the three of them, and I'll ask again later on, but which of the three of them really kind of jumped out to you the most this week, and if there's one that you really connect with a bit more. So I am going to, nope, I don't want that. I am going to check in the chat. Again, I apologize of why I can't do this. It's not letting me see any of the chats, but again, yeah, pop in and let me know. Janelle, especially if you're here, let me know if you're able to comment. If for some reason we get through this and you comment and I can't see it, I apologize. I will come back and answer any questions that you have, but maybe it will decide it wants to work. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I do see Janelle here, so I can see her. I can see her words. Yay. Okay, awesome. So let me back up just a smidge and say that I think it's one thing I'm going to be talking about a bit more is this notion of understanding who we are and connecting with our intuition. So all the work that I do here with you is for you to begin to connect with your intuition more, right? It's for you to begin to, especially now that we're here kind of within this group, I want you to really take some time, right? This is about you connecting with who you really are, not who you think you're supposed to be, not who someone else has told you you should be, but who you truly are. Okay. And, the more conversations I have, the more I try to understand it for myself and for other women that I know, that I talk to, is that it's a struggle. It's a struggle for us on a consistent basis to stay connected to what our intuition is telling us versus what the outside world, what everything else is kind of telling us, right? So I encourage you through this messaging that we're using through the tarot, and I'm going to show you the three cards that we have for this week in just a moment. But I really encourage you to find as many ways as you can, and I will try to offer as many ways as I can, for you to really listen to that little voice inside of you. That is your intuition. I've talked a ton about that. I'll keep talking about that. But I really want you to recognize that there is a path, there is a voice that knows which way you should be moving, what feels good for you, that we just have to slow down and start to listen to more, right? And there's lots of ways to do that. We can talk more about that at another time. And I'd love any questions that you have for you to go ahead and ask me. Any questions that you have about how to connect, ways to connect, what challenges you've experienced in trying to connect. But I'm going to be talking a bit more about this, especially here in the group, in different ways, because I've just found, again, even for myself, even for someone who's really actively doing this for myself and for my business, it's an ongoing process. And I want you all to really realize that this isn't like a one-off thing, like, okay, oh, I learned how to meditate, and so now I can check that off my list. No, it's an ongoing process. So that's actually kind of a good segue into our first card this week. I'm just going to switch over my camera. Ta-da! And to the Empress. Okay, so the Empress is the next on our journey through the Arcana, learning our life lessons. We started out as the Fool. The Fool is us in a space of kind of blissful unawareness, right? We don't have any baggage from the past. We don't have, we're not carrying with us good or bad of what has happened before. There's no expectations. It's just starting with a clean slate, right? And so in practical terms, that's when, you are starting something new. You're deciding, you know what, I'm doing this completely different. I'm going to start on this new journey, whether it's, in your career, whether it's starting your business, whether it's a relationship, whether it's whatever it is, right? It's that phase where you start out and you say, okay, you know what? I'm not bringing all this old shit with me. I'm just going to start this journey and see where it leads me. We moved along that journey. We ran into the Magician, who, again, you can watch last week's Wednesday Woo and get a little bit more information about this. But you run into the Magician, who just lets you know, like, hey, I know you're starting out new here, but just know you have all the things, all the tools, every single thing you think you might think that you need, you already have that innately within you, right? So he teaches us that. We continue down that journey to the High Priestess, who lets us know that, again, we have this connection to that which is bigger than us, right? So whether you identify that as spirit, as God, as goddess, as higher part, however you identify that, the High Priestess reminds us that there is a little voice within us that we always can turn to, that is always there, that from the minute we entered this earth, we have a connection to that which is bigger than us. And she's that reminder. So now as we move forward, and I'm going to check in the chat, and I see, oh, okay. So I can't, for some reason, see people's names, but I can see your message. So I see greetings, and then I see Janelle said, hey, Keela. So hey, Keela, if you're still here. If you are also the same person who has a question, I'm struggling with deciding if I should stay at my full-time job or leave. Okay. So two things, and I apologize if this is not you, Keela. If you would, I'd love for you to put your name in and just say, hey, because I can't see it for some reason today. Be Live does what it wants to do. So I'm going to come back to your question before we leave here. So stay tuned for that. And I'll kind of tie this in here to your question, that as we move forward in the journey, again, the Magician, the High Priestess are kind of a knowingness that we have within us, right? And so now I think about this as us walking this path and kind of meeting these energies, right? So the next energy that we meet is the Empress. So the Empress is she is all things feminine energy, right? And it doesn't mean that it's about womanhood or being female, specifically identifying as a gender that is female. It's about feminine energy. We all possess feminine and masculine energy. There needs to be, excuse me, a balance in our lives and ourselves of feminine and masculine energy. Those are just the terms. They are truly, in this sense, not related to gender identity. But feminine energy is very receptive, right? It's taking in, it's creating a warmth, a comfort, a cocoon around others, around ourselves, right? Feminine energy, Empress energy is about birthing, right? In the terms of creating something new, in terms of creating space for other things, for other people. It is that kind of birthing, mothering energy, right? And so the Empress is the first time that we understand that within us, we have this ability to create, to nurture, and to support ourselves and those around us, right? So she teaches us that, and I say she in terms of, again, this kind of feminine energy, because it truly is not around gender, but the Empress teaches us that we have that ability, right? So the magician kind of let us know, like, yes, you can do all the things. Now we're getting more specific, right? Well, what are all the things? Well, the Empress teaches us that we need to understand and connect with that ability to create, to nurture, to support. We have to embody that, right? And so she is all things that you can think of when it comes to that kind of feminine energy. Creating safe spaces is something that I think about, because after we move through this path, we then run into, it's over here. We then run into the Emperor, okay? So I'm going to just see if there's another question. Okay. Okay, Keila. Okay, that is you, Keila. Okay, wonderful. Sorry. So we continue down the path. We meet the Empress and we continue. And now, now that we've understood and we've learned that we need to embrace that creative, nurturing, warm part of ourselves, now we meet the Emperor, who isn't the opposite, right? He is, I'm going to again use the word he. The Emperor is the masculine equivalent of the Empress energy, in that masculine energy is not about creating nurturing spaces, right? Masculine energy is about creating structure, creating kind of rules and systems to keep things orderly, to keep things moving, right? So when I talk about, you may have heard me talk before about projective and receptive energies. So, the Empress is that receptive energy that, kind of taking in and nurturing, warming. I think of like hugging and come to my bosom and things like that with feminine Empress energy. Masculine energy is not that. It's projective, right? It's I'm putting things out here to create a structure for you, right? To create a structure of laws and order and all of those kinds of components, and making sure that things move forward, right? That we're not just creating, but that we're also then moving that out into the world. Okay. So that is the Emperor, or masculine energy. This is the first time that we need to learn about that, right? So we continue down the journey, and so I'm going to do probably 3 a week, just because that works out pretty well. So then the third energy, and where we'll stop today as far as cards, is the Hierophant. So again, we met feminine energy, we met masculine energy, and now this energy, this lesson is about spiritual connection, right? So, the visual here and in almost all the tarot cards that I've seen that have people images in them, the Hierophant often looks like a religious figure. So, I mean, he kind of has, like papal clothes on, like Pope, and you see, a cross on what looks like could be a Bible type of things. And certainly the Hierophant can represent religious doctrine, but the Hierophant is much more to me about spiritual connection, creating a spiritual connection that is that you can replicate, that you can continue. It is like the masculine energy of the Emperor. It is creating a structure around your spirituality or spiritual teachings. So for example, this is religious example, but so I grew up in going to Baptist church quite a bit, right? And so there's a structure, right? You go certain days, you do certain things. There are certain group morals, if you will, that everyone kind of agrees to within that religious context that you can then pass down, right? So there was, a pastor who spoke, shared the message, the word, pass that down, right? So that would be like a religious context. In a spiritual context, it could be you creating a practice of journaling, of meditating, of finding time to connect within, that becomes not just a one-off, but a practice. Okay. So why is this important, right? There are lots of people who are not religious, who don't necessarily have any kind of spiritual practice or something that was handed down to them. And that's fine. The lesson here, right, these are all life lessons. These aren't Melissa lessons. These are life lessons that each of us needs to learn. We can do with them what we want. But there is value in creating a space for yourself, spiritually or religiously, however you want to, that you can connect back to yourself and back to, again, that which is larger, bigger than you. Okay. So, the imagery in this particular deck is a little, harsh isn't the word. It's a little more dramatic than in some decks. But what's interesting is that spirituality, I think the Hierophant can be a very difficult card because spirituality, religion more specifically, can often be seen as too rigid, too structured, too judgmental, too fill in the blank. When in reality, again, if you're speaking on a spiritual level, it is what you make it, right? So no one with free will, no one who has freedom in the sense of being able to choose what they do with their day has to remain within a particular religious group, right? Your spirit, your essence, your connection to the things around you it is something that is a part of who you are, whether you want to acknowledge it or not, right? So the lesson of the Hierophant is that it is important, whether it seems like a hardship or something that may be natural. It is something that it's important for you to understand that there's value in it for you, right? That there is value in you taking the time, taking the space to create a practice, to create a way in which you're able to listen to yourself. And so I want to come back then to Keela's question. And I would say, I'm not Keela, today is not a day where I'm pulling cards specifically. We certainly can talk offline if you'd like to. But based on especially these three cards and thinking about the journey through the tarot and learning our life lessons, when you think about you struggling to stay at your job or not, it's interesting because I know there have been other conversations um, about your partner and her being kind of in her head about things, right? Around certain decisions. And I feel like this is another example of you having an answer, but your mind is taken over. Your mind is spinning, saying that, well, here's all the rational reasons why you need to keep that job and, X, Y, and Z. And I'm not saying you should quit your job. I'm saying that as we learn these life lessons, as we think about, as the Hierophant is sharing the screen with me, as we think about how to move forward in our life and our decisions, it's less important whether there's a black and white, should I leave or shouldn't I? Why is this come up for you? Why are you feeling as though you should be leaving this job? Because it wouldn't come up for you intuitively. Your body wouldn't feel a need to, your mind wouldn't feel a need to ask those questions if there wasn't something else going on that moved you in that direction, right? So if you think about your full-time job, if there are problems there, if there are concerns there, if it's a matter of you want to do something different, something more, something less, whatever it is, that's the question that I would say is most important for you and for all of us to find some time on the underlying questions, or the underlying why things are happening. Why am I thinking about leaving? Why am I thinking about, um, restructuring my business? Why, what is it that brought me to that space? And those are the questions that are going to help you to kind of sit and listen to the answers, because you have the answers. The question isn't should you leave or shouldn't you leave. If you're already thinking about leaving, your intuition probably has already given you a bunch of reasons why you should leave. Practicality certainly plays a role in it, but it's most important to understand what the why is. Does that make sense? I'd love for you to let me know if that makes sense, if you're still here. And hey, Wanda, I don't know why I can see Wanda's name and not other folks. I don't know. We'll continue to focus to figure this out. So I hope that helps, Keela, at least a little bit right now. I'd love for you to let me know either in the chat or send me a message and let me know. But ultimately, again, this week, I want you to, and yesterday there was some questions that you can kind of ask of yourself or ask of the cards, and sit with those questions and really listen internally for the answers. I would love to hear from y'all. If you take a look at those questions and answer them for yourself, like what really jumped out at you, this week? What really jumped out as far as, these three, I can't really smush them together here. I'm not going to mess with all the cards, but with my cameras, which, I always have issue with, but, between the Empress energy and that nurturing, creation energy, the Emperor's energy of moving from that creation into creating a structure and a way to move that creativity forward and out into the world. And then the Hierophant's energy of creating, still creating structure, but in a much more intuitive, spiritual way that is going to allow you to stay connected to yourself within and stay connected to that which is bigger than you. Okay, so that's what I got this week. I'm so thankful to have you all here. As you may or may not be able to tell, I've moved these Wednesdays specifically into our WTF group, because I want this to be a little more cozy for us. I want us to feel a little more comfortable in sharing, our needs, our wants, our concerns with one another. I want that to be a little more confined to people who are kind of like minded, if you will. So now you'll see the Wednesdays will be here in the group. So make sure to come back, let folks know. Uh, if there's somebody who needs to hear these conversations, definitely send them over here. But our Fridays will continue to be on here and in the group. So make sure you come back on Friday when I'm going to have my spectacular friend Jocelyn with me. She's such a sweetheart. She's a book coach. So if you've ever thought about have this book in me and it really needs to get out. Or, maybe you've already started writing a book and you're not really sure how the hell you're supposed to get it out into the world. We're going to talk about those things. That's what she does. She's also like really awesome and she's really fun to talk to. And we'll be talking about a bunch of random things too. So join me Friday at 6 o'clock for Friend Fridays. And again, if you've got any questions, pop them in here or reach out to me so I can help. All right. Love you all. Make sure you stay magical. Have a great week.